The small research ship Gentle Current floated helplessly in the dark space between two distant stars. Its smooth, pearl-white hull was cracked in several places, and thin streams of glowing blue gas leaked out into the cold void. Inside the ship, Captain Vell pressed his webbed hand against the control panel and watched the numbers on his screen drop lower and lower. "Captain," called out his navigator, Finn, from across the bridge, "life support is down to 38%. At this rate, we have maybe 6 hours left." Vell closed his large, dark eyes and tried to stay calm. His people, the Aquari, were known throughout the galaxy for being peaceful and wise. They lived on water worlds and spent their time studying science and art. They had never been in a situation like this before. The Gentle Current was supposed to be on a simple mission. They were exploring new star systems, looking for planets with peaceful plant-eating creatures that might want to join the Galactic Council. It was supposed to be safe and easy work. But 3 days ago, they had flown into a field of floating rocks that the ship's sensors had missed. The rocks had torn through their hull like sharp knives through paper. Now they were stranded millions of miles from the nearest help, with their engines dead and their communication system barely working. "Sir," said Dr. Keff, the ship's medical officer. She was tending to several crew members who had been hurt when the rocks hit their ship. "The younglings are having trouble breathing. The air is getting too thin for them." Vell looked over at the corner of the bridge where 5 young Aquari sat quietly. They were just children, brought along to learn about space exploration. Their gills were fluttering rapidly as they struggled to get enough oxygen from the failing air system. The captain felt a heavy weight in his chest. These were his people, his responsibility. There had to be something he could do. "What about the emergency beacon?" asked Finn. "Can we send a distress call?" Vell nodded and moved to the communication station. The emergency system was still working, though barely. When he activated it, the screen lit up with a map of nearby star systems. The computer began searching for any civilization that had faster-than-light travel and could reach them in time. "Scanning for rescue possibilities," the computer said in its calm, musical voice. "Please wait." The crew gathered around as the system worked. Dots of light appeared on the star map, showing different alien civilizations. Most were too far away. Others did not have ships fast enough to reach them before their air ran out. Then suddenly a new dot appeared on the map. It was close, very close compared to the others. The computer highlighted it in bright green. "Suitable rescue civilization found," the computer announced. "Planet designation, Earth. Species, human. Technology level, advanced faster than light. Capability. Estimated travel time to rescue, 18 hours. Vell frowned as he looked at the information. "Earth? I have never heard of this planet. Finn, check the Council database." Finn's fingers moved quickly over his control panel. After a moment, his face went pale. "Captain, I found it, but there is a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The planet Earth is listed in the restricted files. It says here, extreme hazard, Deathworld classification, contact forbidden, species designated as highly dangerous." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what a Deathworld was, a planet so harsh and deadly that any species that evolved there would be savage and violent. The Galactic Council had strict rules about avoiding such worlds and the dangerous creatures that came from them. "But, Captain," Dr. Keff said softly, "look at their technology rating. It says they have advanced medical systems and rescue capabilities." Vell stared at the screen. The computer estimated that these humans could reach them in 18 hours, just in time to save his crew. But if they really were dangerous Deathworlders— He looked around the bridge at his dying crew. The younglings were getting weaker by the minute. Several of his officers were unconscious from lack of oxygen. They did not have 18 hours to debate this decision. "Maybe the database is wrong," Vell said, more to himself than to anyone else. "Any species advanced enough to travel between stars must be civilized. They must have learned to be peaceful, like all council members." Finn nodded hopefully. "Perhaps the classification is just old information, or maybe it is a mistake." Lai made his choice. With shaking hands, he activated the distress beacon and aimed it toward Earth. The message would travel faster than light, reaching the human homeworld in just a few minutes. He carefully composed their plea for help. Emergency transmission. To planet Earth. This is Captain Vell of the research vessel Gentle Current. We are stranded in space with critical life support failure. Our position is... He read off their coordinates. We have 43 crew members aboard, including 5 younglings. We are scientists and explorers. We mean no harm to anyone. Please, if you can hear this message, we desperately need rescue. Time remaining, approximately 6 hours. After he sent the message, Vell sat back in his chair and waited. Around him, his crew tried to stay calm, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They were putting their lives in the hands of complete strangers from a world marked as dangerous. How long until we get a response? Asked Dr. Kiff. If they receive our message and decide to help, we should hear back within the hour, Vell replied. Then 18 hours for them to reach us. The waiting began. Every few minutes, someone would check the life support readings. The numbers kept dropping. 35%, 32%, 28%. Finally, after what felt like forever, the communication system crackled to life. A new voice came through the speakers, deeper and rougher than any Aquari voice, speaking in words that the ship's translator had to work hard to understand. Attention vessel Gentle Current. This is Admiral Kane of the Terran Defense Command. We have received your distress call and are preparing an immediate rescue mission. Please transmit your detailed ship specifications and crew medical requirements. Help is on the way. The bridge erupted in relieved cheers. They were saved. But as Vell listened to the message again, certain words stuck in his mind. Terran Defense Command. Not Terran Science Institute or Terran Exploration Service. Defense Command sounded military. Captain, Finn whispered. Did you notice what he called himself? Admiral Kane. That is a military title. Vell felt a chill run through his body. What kind of rescue ship would be commanded by a military officer? What kind of civilization put their military in charge of rescue operations? But the life support was down to 24% now, and there was no time for second thoughts. They had called for help from the Deathworlders, and now that help was coming. All they could do was wait and hope that they had not made a terrible mistake. Outside the ship, the stars continued to shine coldly in the darkness, keeping their secrets about what was racing toward them through the void. Deep inside the Terran Defense Command headquarters on Earth, alarms suddenly filled the air with their sharp, urgent sound. Admiral Kane was in his office, reviewing reports from the outer colonies, when his communication officer burst through the door. Sir, we have an emergency transmission from unknown aliens, Lieutenant Ross said, breathing hard from running. They're asking for rescue. Kane stood up quickly, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. His gray hair and weathered face showed the marks of 30 years in the military. Aliens? Are you certain it's not a trick? The transmission is unlike anything we've seen before, sir. The language patterns, the technology signatures, it's definitely not human. And sir, Ross paused, looking worried. The bioscans they sent show they're dying. Life support failure in space. Kane followed Ross to the main command center, where dozens of officers worked at glowing screens. The large wall display showed a map of nearby space, with a small blinking dot marking the location of the alien ship. Play the message, Kane ordered. The speakers filled the room with a strange musical voice. Emergency transmission to planet Earth. This is Captain Vell of the research vessel Gentle Current. We are stranded in space with critical life support failure. Kane listened to the entire message, his expression growing more serious with each word. When it finished, he turned to his intelligence officer, Colonel Reed. Reed was a shorter man with scars across his left cheek from a battle with space pirates 5 years earlier. What do we know about this area of space, Colonel? Kane asked. Reed pulled up detailed star charts on his screen. Sir, that's the Kepler 442 region. It's been getting dangerous lately. 3 different alien species have been building military bases there. The Vorthak Empire, the Hegemony Coalition, and the Rigel Confederacy. They're all expanding toward human space. Could this be a trap? Kane asked, studying the coordinates. Bait to lure one of our ships into an ambush? Reed zoomed in on the biological readings from the alien ship. The life signs look genuine, sir. We're seeing 43 different biosignatures, and several appear to be children based on their smaller size and higher metabolic rates. If it's a fake, it's incredibly detailed. Kane was quiet for a moment, thinking. He had learned to be suspicious during his long military career. Too many good soldiers had died walking into traps. But the readings showed children dying in space, and that changed everything. "What's our closest ship to their position?" he asked. "The Iron Hammer, sir," replied Captain Torres, the fleet coordinator. She was a tough woman in her 40s who had worked her way up from enlisted ranks. It just finished patrol near the Centauri colonies. Captain Morrison commanding with a full crew of 800. Kane nodded. The Iron Hammer was perfect for this mission. It was one of Earth's newest dreadnought-class warships, 2 kilometers long and armed with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. More importantly, it had excellent medical facilities and could handle rescue operations. "Get me Captain Morrison on the line," Kane ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Iron Hammer. Captain Morrison appeared, a calm, steady man in his 50s with graying temples. Behind him, Kane could see the efficient activity of a warship's bridge crew. "Admiral, we received the alien transmission," Morrison said without waiting for orders. "My medical team is already analyzing their biological data." "What's your assessment, Captain?" "They're not human, but they're definitely dying. Dr. Park says we can adapt our life support systems to help them. The ship appears to be a science vessel. No weapon signatures that we can detect." Kane made his decision. "Captain Morrison, you are hereby ordered to proceed immediately to the coordinates and render assistance to the alien vessel. Full rescue protocols." "Understood, sir. What are our rules of engagement if this turns out to be hostile?" "Protect yourself and your crew first, but remember, if this is genuine, we're about to make first contact with a new alien species. How we handle this could affect Earth's future relations with them." Morrison nodded seriously. "We'll be ready for anything, Admiral. Estimated travel time at maximum hyperspace speed is 18 hours. Make it 17 if you can, Captain. Those children don't have much time." As the connection ended, Kane turned to address his staff. "I want full monitoring of this situation. If the Iron Hammer runs into trouble, I want to know immediately. Also, get me a line to the President. She needs to know about this." Colonel Reed stepped forward. "Sir, shouldn't we contact the Galactic Council about this? Standard procedure for first contact situations." Kane's expression darkened. "The Council? Reed, they've been ignoring our request for membership for 20 years. 3 of their member species are building military bases in space we consider ours. As far as I'm concerned, this is between us and these, what did they call themselves? Aquari, sir. From the research vessel Gentle Current. Right, this is between us and the Aquari. The Council doesn't get a say." Meanwhile, aboard the Iron Hammer, Captain Morrison was preparing his ship for the rescue mission. The massive dreadnought came alive with activity as the crew prepared for hyperspace jump. "All hands, this is the captain." Morrison's voice echoed through the ship's corridors. "We are responding to an alien distress call. This is a rescue mission, but we're going into potentially hostile space. All departments prepare for possible combat, while maintaining readiness for humanitarian operations." In the medical bay, Dr. Park was working with his team to understand the alien biological data. "Their respiratory system is completely different from ours," he explained to his nurses. "They process oxygen through what look like gills as well as lungs. We'll need to adjust our atmospheric mix." Chief Engineer Blake was modifying the ship's life support systems. "If we need to take 43 aliens aboard, we'll have to expand our environmental controls," she told her team. "I want portable life support units ready for immediate deployment." In the Marine quarters, Sergeant Major Stone was briefing his soldiers. "We don't know what these aliens look like or how they'll react to us," he said to the assembled troops. "Remember, this is a rescue mission. We go in ready to fight, but hoping to help." As the Iron Hammer entered hyperspace, its hull glowing with the energy of faster-than-light travel, the crew settled in for the 17-hour journey. None of them knew that they were about to make contact with a species that thought of them as dangerous monsters from a death world. Admiral Kane remained in the command center, watching the ship's progress on the star map. In a few hours, Humanity would either gain new friends among the stars or face a new enemy. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn that humans did not abandon those who called for help, no matter who they were or where they came from. The countdown had begun. Aboard the Gentle Current, the situation was getting worse by the hour. Captain Vell watched the life support readings drop to 15%, while his crew grew weaker and weaker. The 5 younglings were barely conscious now, their small bodies struggling to breathe the thin air. "Captain," whispered Navigator Finn, his voice so weak it was hard to hear. "The humans. How much longer?" Vell checked his timer. 2 more hours. We just have to hold on for 2 more hours. Dr. Kef was moving slowly between the injured crew members, doing what she could with their failing medical equipment. Several. Aquari had already fallen unconscious. The ship felt like a tomb, quiet except for the labored breathing of the survivors. Suddenly, the ship's sensors began beeping with an urgent alarm. Vell forced himself to stand and stumbled to the navigation console. What he saw on the screen made his blood run cold. "By the deep waters," he gasped. "Finn, look at this." A massive object was approaching through hyperspace, something so large that the ship's computer was having trouble calculating its exact size. The energy readings were unlike anything in the Aquari database. What is that thing?" Finn asked, pulling himself up to see the display. Before Vell could answer, space itself seemed to tear open in front of them. A swirling vortex of light and energy appeared, growing larger and larger. Then, like a sea monster rising from the depths, the human ship emerged from hyperspace. The Iron Hammer was a nightmare made real. It was enormous, at least 40 times larger than the Gentle Current. Its hull was black as deep space, covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to stop asteroids. Rows of weapon emplacements jutted out from its sides like the spines of some deadly creature. Missile launchers, energy cannons, and devices that the Aquari sensors couldn't even identify covered every surface. The front of the ship was shaped like the head of a predator, with sensor arrays that looked like glowing red eyes. Along its sides, Vell could see the scars of battle, places where the armor had been damaged and repaired, telling stories of violent conflicts among the stars. "This is what answered our call for help?" Dr. Kef whispered in horror. "This is a ship of war, not rescue." The Iron Hammer moved closer, and now they could see smaller details that made it even more frightening. Gun turrets tracked their movement automatically. Launch bays stood ready to release fighter craft. The entire vessel hummed with barely contained power. Then the communication system crackled to life with a deep, rough voice that sent chills through every Aquari on the bridge. "Alien vessel Gentle Current, this is Admiral Kane of the Terran, Navy. We are responding to your distress call. Prepare to be boarded for rescue operations." The voice paused, and they could hear other humans talking in the background. Then the Admiral continued, "Do not make any sudden movements or attempt to activate any weapon systems. We are here to help, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Captain Noy. Vell's hands shook as he reached for the communication controls. His people had called for rescue, but they had summoned something that looked more like death itself. Still, with his crew dying around him, he had no choice. "Human vessel," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is Captain Vell. We have no weapons. We are a science ship. We surrender ourselves to your mercy." There was a long pause from the human ship. Then the Admiral's voice returned, but it sounded confused. "Surrender? Captain Vell, we're not here to conquer you. We received your distress call and came to rescue your crew. Do you need medical assistance?" Vell blinked in surprise. These warriors, with their massive ship of destruction, claimed they were here to help? It seemed impossible. In all the stories he had heard about Deathworld species, they were savage creatures who fought and killed without mercy. "Admiral Kane," Vell said carefully, "we are dying. Our life support has failed, and we have injured crew members. But your ship, it is built for war." Another pause. Then a different voice came over the radio, calmer, more gentle. "Captain Vell, this is Captain Morrison of the Iron Hammer. Yes, our ship is designed for combat, but we also carry full medical and rescue facilities. We have doctors, life support, Equipment and everything needed to save your crew. May we come aboard to help you? Dr. Kef grabbed Vel's arm. Captain, the younglings don't have much time left. Whatever these humans are, we have to trust them. Vel looked around at his dying crew and made his decision. Captain Morrison, you have permission to board our vessel. Please, help us. Understood. Preparing rescue teams now. We'll have you and your crew safe in 30 minutes. The Iron Hammer moved closer and the Aquari could see airlocks opening along its side. Smaller craft began emerging. Sleek shuttles that looked fast and dangerous but also equipped with medical symbols and rescue equipment. As the first human shuttle approached their ship, the crew of the Gentle Current huddled together in fear. Through the viewports they could see figures in powered armor moving inside the shuttle. The humans looked huge and threatening, even in their rescue gear. They look like soldiers, Finn whispered. Because they are soldiers, Vel replied quietly. We called for help from a species of warriors. The docking clamps engaged with a loud clang that echoed through both ships. Then they heard the hiss of airlocks connecting and equalizing pressure. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside the bridge, footsteps that belonged to creatures much larger and heavier than any Aquari. The bridge door slid open, and the first human stepped inside. The creature was tall, much taller than any of the Aquari. It wore powered armor that made it look even more massive and threatening. The armor was military green with scratches and dents that showed it had been used in real battles. A helmet covered the human's face, with glowing displays, and sensor equipment that gave it an alien, robotic appearance. But then something unexpected happened. The human stopped just inside the doorway and slowly reached up to remove its helmet. As the helmet came off, the Aquari saw their first human face. It was the face of a female, with short brown hair and kind eyes. Her skin was pale, and there were small scars on her cheek that spoke of old injuries. But despite her warrior's armor and weapons, her expression was gentle and concerned. I'm Commander Hayes, she said in accented but understandable Aquari language. We're here to help. Medical team, get in here now. We have casualties. More humans entered the bridge, but instead of weapons, they carried medical equipment and portable life support devices. They moved with military precision, but their actions were focused entirely on helping the dying Aquari crew. Captain Vel watched in amazement as these fearsome Deathworlders knelt beside his weakest crew members and began working to save their lives. The contradiction was too much for his exhausted mind to understand. Warriors who came to heal, soldiers who came to rescue, Deathworlders who treated alien children with infinite care. What kind of species had they contacted? Commander Hayes looked around the bridge of the Gentle Current and quickly assessed the situation. The air was thin and stale, making it hard even for humans to breathe comfortably. The Aquari crew members were scattered around the room, some unconscious, others barely able to move. Medical Priority 1, she called into her radio. We need portable atmosphere generators and emergency medical kits. These people are in bad shape. Behind her, 4 more humans in powered armor entered the bridge. But unlike Hayes, they kept their helmets on and carried large medical cases instead of weapons. They moved with the same military precision, but their focus was entirely on the dying aliens. Dr. Park was the first to reach the younglings. He was a short, stocky man whose armor bore medical symbols instead of combat insignia. When he knelt beside the smallest Aquari child, his movements were surprisingly gentle for someone in such heavy equipment. Easy there, little one, he said, softly, even though the child couldn't understand his words. His tone was universally calming. He pulled out a scanner and began running it over the young Aquari's body. Captain Vel watched in fascination as the device beeped and displayed readings that Dr. Park somehow understood. The human doctor frowned at the results, then reached into his medical kit and pulled out a small breathing mask. This should help, Dr. Park said, carefully placing the mask over the child's gills and nose. Immediately, the young Aquari's breathing became easier, and some color returned to its pale skin. How did you know how to help our young? Vel asked, his voice filled with wonder. Dr. Park looked up and smiled. Your distress call included biological data about your species. We've been analyzing it during our journey here. Your respiratory system is actually quite elegant. You can process oxygen through both gills and lungs simultaneously. We just had to adjust our equipment to match your needs." While Dr. Park worked on the children, the other medics spread out across the bridge. Sergeant Martinez, a tall woman with gentle hands, was helping Navigator Finn sit up and breathe from a portable oxygen unit. Another medic, Corporal Thompson, was carefully examining Dr. Keff's injuries from when the asteroids had damaged their ship. "Commander," called out one of the medics, "we need to get these people to our medical bay as soon as possible. Several of them have severe oxygen deprivation, and that injured officer has internal bleeding." Hayes nodded and activated her communication system. "Captain Morrison, we need immediate medical transport. The aliens are in worse shape than we thought." Morrison's voice came back clearly. "Understood, Commander. Medical shuttles are standing by. How many passengers?" Hayes did a quick count. 43 total, including 5 children. At least 12 need immediate intensive care. We're ready for them. Bring them home. As the human medics prepared the Aquari for transport, Captain Vell noticed something that amazed him. These warriors, who looked so frightening in their battle armor, were treating his crew with incredible care. When they lifted injured Aquari onto stretchers, their movements were precise and gentle. When they spoke to frightened crew members, their voices were calm and reassuring, even though the words were in a foreign language. Sergeant Martinez was helping one of the older Aquari crew members walk to the transport shuttle. The alien was weak and stumbling, but instead of becoming impatient, Martinez simply adjusted her pace and provided steady support. "Take your time," she said in broken Aquari, obviously having learned a few words during the journey. "No rush, safe now." Dr. Keff, who was conscious despite her injuries, grabbed Vell's arm as she was being moved to a stretcher. "Captain," she whispered, "these humans, they're not what the database said they would be." Vell nodded, equally confused. Everything about these creatures suggested they were born for war. Their ship was a weapon, their armor was designed for battle, and they moved with the coordination of trained soldiers. But their actions spoke of compassion and mercy. Commander Hayes approached Vell as the last of his crew was being prepared for transport. "Captain, we need to move you now. Your condition is worse than the others. You've been breathing this bad the longest." "I must stay with my ship," Vell protested weakly. Hayes shook her head firmly. "Sir, with respect, your ship is dead. Life support is completely gone, and the hull breaches are too severe to repair out here. We'll take you aboard the Iron Hammer and get you healthy, then we can discuss what to do about your vessel." As they helped Vell onto a stretcher, he looked around the bridge of the gentle current one last time. This had been his home for 5 years, and now he was leaving it in the hands of alien warriors from a death world. The transport shuttle was unlike anything Vell had ever seen. The interior was clearly military, reinforced walls, weapon storage, and seats designed for armored soldiers. But the medical equipment was more advanced than anything in the Galactic Council. The humans had converted their war machine into a sophisticated ambulance. During the short flight to the Iron Hammer, Vell watched Dr. Park work on the most seriously injured Aquari. The human doctor's hands moved with practiced skill, using devices that could monitor alien biology and adjust treatment accordingly. "How long have your people been practicing medicine on other species?" Vell asked. Dr. Park looked up from his patient. "We haven't. You're the first non-human patients we've ever treated. But the principles of trauma medicine are fairly universal, and your biological data helped us prepare." Vell was stunned. These humans had risked their lives to rescue complete strangers from a species they had never even met before. They had modified their equipment, learned basic words in his language, and treated his crew as if they were their own people. The shuttle docked with the Iron Hammer, and Vell got his first look inside the massive human warship. The corridors were wide and functional, with exposed pipes and wiring that spoke of a species that valued efficiency over beauty. But everywhere he looked, he saw signs that this ship's crew was prepared for his arrival. Signs had been posted in both human, writing and hastily translated Aquari script, showing directions to medical facilities, The air had been adjusted to be more comfortable for his species. Even the lighting had been modified to be less harsh for Aquari eyes. As they moved through the ship, Vel saw human crew members stopping their work to watch the injured aliens pass by. But instead of the curiosity or hostility he might have expected, their faces showed concern and sympathy. A young human technician approached Commander Hayes. "Ma'am, we've prepared special quarters for our guests. Temperature and humidity are set for aquatic comfort, and we've installed communication systems with translation protocols." Hayes nodded approvingly. "Good work, Jenkins. Make sure they know they're welcome here." As Vel was wheeled into the medical bay, he realized that everything he thought he knew about Deathworlders was wrong. These humans were indeed warriors. That much was obvious from their ship and equipment. But they were also healers, protectors, and caregivers. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. Soldiers with hearts of gold. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and Captain Vel was finally strong enough to walk through the corridors of the Iron Hammer. The human medical bay had worked miracles on his crew. All 43 Aquari had survived, including the 5 younglings who were now playing games with off-duty human crew members in the ship's recreation area. As Vel made his way to Admiral Kane's office, he marveled at how the humans had transformed part of their warship into a comfortable living space for his people. The corridors that once seemed cold and threatening now felt welcoming. Human crew members nodded politely as he passed, and some even attempted to greet him in broken Aquari. The door to the Admiral's ready room slid open with a soft hiss. Admiral Kane stood looking out a large window at the stars, his hands clasped behind his back. The room was simple but functional. A desk, chairs, and walls covered with star charts and what appeared to be military honors. "Captain Vel," Kane said, turning around with a slight smile. "Dr. Park tells me you're making excellent recovery. Please sit down, we need to talk." Vel settled into a chair that had been specially adjusted for his physiology. "Admiral Kane, I must thank you again. Your people saved our lives when they had no reason to help us." Kane sat across from him, his expression becoming more serious. "Captain, you said in your distress call that you're part of the Galactic Council. Tell me about this council." "The Council is a union of peaceful species from across the galaxy," Vel explained. "We explore space, share knowledge, and help civilizations grow and prosper. There are over 200 member species, all dedicated to science, art, and peaceful cooperation." Kane's eyes narrowed slightly. "And Earth? What does your council know about Earth?" Vel felt uncomfortable under the Admiral's steady gaze. I checked our database after we were rescued. Earth is listed as a restricted world. The classification says it's a death world and contact is forbidden." "Forbidden," Kane repeated, his voice growing cold. "And why is that?" "The records say that death world species are too violent and dangerous to be trusted, that they only know war and destruction." Vel paused, looking around the room that belonged to these supposedly savage beings who had risked everything to save his people. "But the records are clearly wrong." Kane stood up and walked to a wall display showing a map of local space. With a touch of his hand, the map zoomed in on a sector near Earth. "Captain, do you recognize this region?" Vel studied the display and felt his heart sink. "That's where we were stranded, the Kepler 442 region." "Exactly. And do you see these installations?" Kane highlighted several structures on the map. Military bases built by 3 different council member species, the Vorthak Empire, the Hegemony Coalition, and the Rigel Confederacy. The implications hit Vel like a physical blow. They're expanding toward human space. "More than that," Kane said grimly. "They're cutting off our trade routes, threatening our colonies, and building up forces for what looks like an invasion. All this while your council maintains that we're too dangerous to even talk to." Vel stared at the map in horror. The council species he knew as peaceful explorers were acting like conquerors in this region of space. I had no idea. Our exploration missions are always in the opposite direction from this sector." "Of course they are," Kane said. "Can't have peaceful council members seeing their military expansion, can we?" Captain Morrison entered the room, carrying a data pad. "Admiral, we just received intelligence from our scout ships. The Vorthak are moving a battle fleet toward the Proxima system. That's where we have 50,000 colonists." Kane nodded, grimly. "How long until they arrive?" 6 days, sir." Vel felt sick. The Proxima system wasn't far from where they had found him. If the Vorthak were moving a battle fleet there, it meant they were preparing for serious military action against human space. "Admiral," Vel said quietly, "there must be some mistake. The Council promotes peace. They would never approve of military aggression." Kane sat back down and looked directly at Vel. "Captain, let me ask you something. In all your years with the Council, how many species have you encountered that evolved on harsh worlds? Planets with dangerous predators, extreme weather, or scarce resources?" Vel thought about it and realized he couldn't name a single one. "None. All Council species come from peaceful garden worlds with abundant resources." "Exactly. Your Council isn't promoting peace it's maintaining control. They've created a galaxy where only soft, gentle species are allowed to participate, while keeping out anyone who might challenge their authority." The truth was becoming clear to Vel, and he didn't like what he was seeing. But they genuinely believe that Deathworld species are dangerous. "Are we dangerous?" Kane asked. "Your crew has been aboard this ship for 3 days. Have we threatened you? Demanded payment for the rescue? Tried to steal your technology or interrogate you for information?" Vel shook his head. "No. Your people have been nothing but kind to us." "Captain Vel," Morrison interjected, "your younglings have been playing with our off-duty crew. Yesterday I saw Sergeant Martinez teaching them human games while they taught her Aquari songs. Does that sound like the behavior of savage warriors?" Vel felt ashamed. Everything he had been taught about Deathworlders was not just wrong, it was deliberately misleading. "What do you want from me?" Kane leaned forward. "We're taking you and your crew to Council Station Harmony. It's the nearest diplomatic outpost. You can return to your people and resume your life, but I want you to think about what you've seen here. The Council needs to know the truth about humans," Vel said slowly. "Does it?" Kane challenged. 3 Council species are about to attack our colonies. When you report back, will your superiors listen to your story about peaceful humans? Or will they assume we brainwashed you or threatened you into saying good things about us?" The question hit Vel hard, because he already knew the answer. The Council bureaucrats would never believe that their fundamental assumptions about Deathworlders were wrong. They would assume he had been corrupted or coerced. "There's something else," Morrison added. "We intercepted communications from the Vorthak fleet. They're not just planning to attack our colonies. They're planning to frame us for attacking first. They want to make it look like the dangerous Deathworlders started a war." Vel felt the weight of terrible knowledge settling on his shoulders. The galaxy was about to see a conflict that would pit the peaceful Council against the supposedly savage humans. But he knew the truth. The humans weren't the aggressors. "What can I do?" he asked. Kane smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "That's up to you, Captain. You can return to your people and tell them what you've seen. Maybe some of them will listen. Or you can stay silent and let events unfold as they will." Vel looked out the window at the stars. In 6 days, human colonists would face attack from a Council species fleet. The humans would defend themselves, and the Council would point to that defense as proof of their violent nature, unless someone who had seen the truth was willing to stand up and speak it. "Admiral," Vel said finally, "I think we need to make a stop before you take us to Council Station Harmony." "Where?" "The Proxima system. I need to see what happens when the Vorthak arrive. I need to witness the truth with my own eyes so that when I testify before the Council, they cannot dismiss my words." Kane and Morrison exchanged glances. Then Kane nodded slowly. "Very well, Captain. But understand, what you're about to see may be the beginning of a war that will reshape the galaxy." As the Iron Hammer changed course toward human space, Vel realized that his simple rescue mission had become something much larger. He was about to become the bridge between 2 very different views of what civilization should be. The stars held their secrets. But soon, The galaxy would learn that sometimes the greatest warriors make the greatest protectors. The Deathworld Council station hung in space like a massive metal flower. Its 6 arms stretched out from a central hub, each one bigger than most space cities. Inside those arms lived the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Only creatures from the deadliest worlds could call this place home. Captain Reed looked at the station through the cracked window of his ship. The Defiance shook around him as another system failed somewhere in the back. Sparks flew from a broken panel near his chair. The lights flickered on and off like a dying heartbeat. "Sir, they're not answering our calls," said Lieutenant Tom from the communication station. His young face was covered in sweat and grease. "Been trying for 20 minutes now." Reed nodded slowly. He had expected this. The council did not welcome visitors, especially not visitors who looked like they were about to die. The Defiance was not a pretty ship. Her hull was covered in metal patches where space rocks had punched holes. Wire bundles hung from the ceiling where engineers had rerouted power around broken systems. The air recycler made a grinding sound that meant it might stop working any day now. "Keep trying," Reed said, "and send them our papers. All of them." Through the station's massive windows, alien shapes moved in the corridors. Reed could see a creature made of living crystal walking past a viewing port. Somewhere else, a being covered in thick fur moved on 4 legs down a hallway. These were the council members, the survivors of worlds that tried to kill everything that lived on them. "Sir, we're getting a response," Tom called out. "Administrator Vex wants to talk." The main screen flickered to life. A face made of blue crystal looked back at them. Administrator Vex had no real mouth, but her voice came through clearly. When she spoke, light pulsed through her crystal body like a heartbeat. "Unknown vessel, you are not authorized to dock at this station," Vex said. Her voice sounded like breaking glass. "This facility is restricted to certified Deathworld species only." Reed stood up slowly. His uniform was old and patched, but clean. "Administrator Vex, I am Captain Reed of the Human Defense Force. We have an appointment." "Humans?" Vex's crystal body flashed brighter. "I have no record of any species called humans. Where is your homeworld?" "Earth," Reed replied. "Sol system, Orion arm." There was a long pause. Reed could see other council members gathering behind Vex. A massive creature covered in stone plates leaned down to whisper something to the administrator. Another being, this one covered in thick white fur, pointed at the human ship with what might have been a claw. "I see no Earth on our Deathworld registry," Vex said finally. "Your vessel appears to be damaged. Are you in distress? Do you require rescue?" Some of Reed's crew laughed quietly. Rescue? As if anyone in the galaxy could rescue humans from the things they chose to face. "No rescue needed," Reed said. "We have proper documentation. Lieutenant Tom, send them file package 7. Tom's fingers danced over his controls. "Sent, sir." Reed watched Vex's crystal face as she received the files. Her body went dark for a moment, then blazed with bright light. Behind her, the other council members pressed closer to their own screens. "These documents," Vex started, then stopped. "These can't be real." 3 different galactic survey teams certified Earth as a Class 12 death world, Reed said calmly. The Zephyrian Science Council rated it unsurvivable by standard life. The Galactic Mapping Authority classified it as extreme biological hazard zone. And your own people, the Crystal Confederation, marked it as not recommended for any form of life. The station's docking bay controllers were clearly confused. Reed could hear them talking to each other over open channels. Words like impossible and fraud came through clearly. "Your ship," said the massive stone creature behind Vex. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "It looks ready to fall apart." "It is," Reed agreed. "We've been traveling for 6 months to get here. Space is not kind to ships that push their limits." 6 months? The furry creature stepped forward. "From where?" "No Deathworld species lives 6 months travel from Council space." Reed smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Earth is 47 light-years from here. We came as fast as we could. Impossible, Vex said. No ship can maintain life support for that long without major shipyard support. The fuel requirements alone. We did not say it was easy, Reed replied. We said we did it. More council. Members were gathering now. Reed could see them through the station's windows. Some floated in suits filled with liquid. Others wore heavy mechanical bodies that helped them move in the station's gravity. All of them stared at the broken human ship with confusion. Administrator Vex, Reed said. We have legal right to dock at this station. Our papers are in order. Our world meets your requirements. We request permission to attend the council session as outlined in Galactic Treaty 445B. Vex's body flickered rapidly. Reed knew she was talking to her legal advisors through private channels. The documents were real. Earth was officially classified as a death world. The humans had followed every rule correctly. Docking Bay 7, Vex said finally. You have 6 hours to present your case to the council. Security teams will escort you at all times. Understood, Reed said. Thank you, Administrator. The screen went dark. Around Reed, his crew began preparing for docking. They moved with quiet efficiency, checking equipment and organizing their few belongings. No one seemed excited about meeting the galaxy's most dangerous species. They had more important things to worry about. Sir, Tom said quietly. Do you think they'll believe us about Earth, I mean? Reed looked out at the station again. Somewhere in there, creatures from frozen worlds and burning worlds and poisonous worlds were wondering what kind of place could create beings that looked so soft and fragile. They'll believe us, Reed said, once they see what we brought with us. Lieutenant Jane walked over from her station. She carried a small data pad in her hands. The screen showed a long list of names, each one marked with a date and location. The manifest is ready, sir, she said softly. All names confirmed. Reed took the pad and looked at the list. 43 names. 43 people who would never see Earth again. 43 humans who had died just so the rest could reach this meeting. Good work, Jane, Reed said. We'll need this when we talk to the council. The Defiant shuddered as the docking clamps engaged. Through the hull, Reed could hear the station's atmosphere pumps working to equalize pressure. Soon the council would meet humanity for the first time. Reed hoped the galaxy was ready for what that meant. The airlock doors opened with a loud hiss. Captain Reed stepped into Deathworld Council Station carrying his datapad like a weapon. Behind him came his crew, 12 humans who looked tired and worn from their long journey. The docking bay was huge. Ships from a dozen deadly worlds sat in their berths like sleeping monsters. Reed saw a vessel made entirely of ice that somehow did not melt. Another ship glowed red-hot, its metal hull radiating heat that made the air shimmer. Waiting for them were the Council's security team. The lead guard was 8 feet tall and covered in blue scales. His partner floated in a tank of green liquid, watching the humans through thick glass. Neither looked friendly. Welcome to Council Station, the scaled guard said. His voice was deep and rough. I am Guard Commander Razor. You will follow me and touch nothing. Reed nodded. Understood, Commander. As they walked through the station's corridors, other beings stopped to stare. A creature made of living metal peered at them from a doorway. Something that looked like a giant spider watched from the ceiling. Word was spreading fast. The soft-looking aliens from the impossible ship had actually made it inside. The council chamber was a massive round room with seats arranged in circles. Each seat was designed for a different type of being. Some were filled with water, others with poison gas. A few glowed with radioactive light. Administrator Vex waited in the center, her crystal body reflecting the room's strange lights. Around her sat the council members Reed had seen through the station windows. Captain Reed, Vex announced, you claim to represent a Deathworld species. The council has reviewed your papers. While they appear genuine, we find your claims difficult to believe. A massive creature covered in stone plates leaned forward. I am Council Member Rock from the world Pharaoh. My planet has gravity 10, time standard. The pressure would crush most beings instantly. Yet you look fragile enough to break in a strong wind. I am Council Member Ice from the frozen world Nyx, said a being wrapped in thick white fur. My homeworld is so cold that most atmosphere freezes solid. Your species appears to have no protection against extreme temperatures. A third council member spoke from inside a suit filled with bubbling liquid. I am Council Member Heat from the lava world Pyros. My planet's surface temperature melts most metals. You wear simple cloth uniforms. How do you survive anything dangerous? Reed looked around the room at faces that had never known mercy from their worlds. These beings understood death and struggle in the fight to survive against impossible odds. They would understand what he was about to show them. Council members, Reed said, holding up his data pad. I carry with me the record of our journey to reach you. Perhaps this will answer your questions about human survival. He touched the pad's screen. A holographic display appeared above the room's center, showing a list of names. Each name had a date next to it and a few words explaining what happened. Engineer Bell, Reed read from the list. Died on day 43 when our reactor nearly exploded. He stayed in the engine room to fix the containment field manually. The radiation killed him in 6 hours. The council members looked at each other. Vex's crystal body flickered with confused light. Pilot Hayes, Reed continued. Died on day 67 when we had to navigate through the Poison Nebula. Someone had to fly the ship manually because our computers couldn't handle the interference. The toxic gas got through his suit's filters. Navigator Brooks. Died on day 91 when space pirates attacked us near the Broken Worlds. She rammed our shuttle into their main ship so the Defiance could escape. Took 12 pirates with her. Reed kept reading. Dr. Price, who died treating a plague they caught at a supply station. Communications Officer Black, who was sucked into space when a meteor punched through the hull. Cook Martinez, who died when the food recycler exploded and filled the kitchen with poisonous gas. This is horrible, whispered Ice. Why didn't you turn back? Why didn't you find a safer route? Reed looked up from his list. There is no safer route, Council Member Ice. Space wants to kill everything in it. Pirates want to rob and murder travelers. Plagues spread between worlds faster than news. Equipment breaks down and kills the people trying to fix it. But you could have avoided some of these dangers, Rock said. Taken more time. Brought better equipment. We brought the best equipment Earth could build, Reed replied. It wasn't enough, it's never enough, that's why we always bring backup crews. Backup crews? Vex asked. Lieutenant Tom stepped forward. Sir, should I tell them about the volunteers? Reed nodded. Tom activated his own datapad. Another holographic list appeared, this one much longer. When we left Earth, Tom explained, we knew people would die on this journey, so we asked for volunteers to replace anyone we lost. 30 people volunteered for 12 backup positions. 30? Heat asked from inside his liquid suit. You had more volunteers than you could use? Much more, Tom said. We had to turn away over 200 people. Everyone wanted to be part of the crew that made first contact with the Deathworld Council. The council chamber fell silent. These beings had spent their lives fighting to survive on worlds that tried to kill them every day. But they had never met a species that volunteered to die for a meeting. Let me understand this correctly, Vex said slowly. You knew this journey would kill some of your crew. You told people they would probably die. And they volunteered anyway? Yes, Reed said. Simply, why? Ice asked. What could be so important that people would volunteer for certain death? Reed smiled, and for the first time since entering the station, it was a real smile. Council Member Ice, that's exactly the wrong question. What do you mean? You asked. Why people would volunteer to die, Reed explained. But that's not what happened. We asked for volunteers who would live long enough to complete the mission. Some of them didn't make it. That's what happens when humans decide something is important. Rock's stone face showed something that might have been surprise. You don't see their deaths as failure? We see their deaths as the price of success, Reed replied. Every person on that list died doing their job. Because of their sacrifice, we made it here. Because we made it here. Humanity now has a voice in the council. Reed touched his datapad again. The list of the dead disappeared, replaced by images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, white clouds. "You want to know if humans can survive a death world?" Reed said to the council. "Look at what we brought with us. Look at what we were willing to pay to get here. Then ask yourself, what kind of world creates people who think this is normal?" Administrator Vex's crystal body pulsed with rapid, confused light. Around the chamber, council members whispered to each other in languages Reed couldn't understand. Finally, Heat spoke from his liquid suit. "Captain Reed, we need to see proof of your world's dangers. Claims about your journey are not enough. Show us why Earth deserves to be called a death world." Reed nodded and handed his datapad to Lieutenant Jane. "Begin the presentation," he said. "Show them what home looks like." Jane's fingers moved across the pad's controls. The holographic display changed, showing new images of Earth. But these were not the beautiful pictures of blue oceans and green forests. These were pictures of Earth trying to kill everything that lived on it. The real presentation was about to begin. Lieutenant Jane touched her datapad and the holographic display came to life above the council chamber. The first image showed Earth from space, a blue and green marble floating in the darkness. "This is Earth," Jane announced to the assembled council members. "Population, 8 billion humans. Average lifespan, 78 years. Dominant species for the last 50,000 years. Council member Rock leaned forward in his stone chair. "It looks pleasant. Where are the dangers you speak of?" Jane smiled the same tired smile Captain Reed had worn earlier. "Let me show you our weather, Council member Rock." The display changed. Now it showed a massive spiral of white clouds spinning over an ocean. The storm was bigger than most moons, with winds that could be seen from space. "This is what we call a hurricane," Jane explained. "Wind speeds reach 300 kilometers per hour. The storm surge can flood areas 50 kilometers inland. This particular hurricane killed 8,000 people and destroyed 4 major cities." Administrator Vex's crystal body flickered. "One storm killed 8,000 of your people?" "One small storm," Jane corrected. "We get about 80 of these every year. Some are much worse." The display changed again. This time it showed a massive column of wind, dark and twisted, tearing across a flat landscape. Houses and vehicles spun through the air like toys. "Tornado," Jane said simply. "Wind speeds up to 500 kilometers per hour. They appear with almost no warning and can change direction instantly. We get about 1,000 of these every year." Council member Ice shifted in her fur-covered chair. "Surely your people stay inside during these storms." "We try," Jane replied. "But they happen too often. People have to work, travel, live their lives. So we built warning systems and shelters and learned to rebuild quickly." The next image made several council members gasp. It showed the ground itself splitting open, buildings collapsing, roads cracking apart like broken glass. "Earthquake," Jane announced. "The planet's surface is made of giant plates that move and crash into each other. When they shift, the ground shakes hard enough to destroy entire cities. This one killed 50,000 people in 6 minutes." "How often do these occur?" asked Heat from inside his liquid suit. "Every day," Jane said casually. "Somewhere on Earth, the ground is shaking. Most are small, but every few years we get a big one." The display showed more images now, cycling through Earth's natural disasters. Volcanoes erupting with explosive force, sending ash clouds that blocked out the sun for months. Floods that covered areas the size of small continents. Droughts that turned fertile land into dust bowls. "This is just the geology and weather," Jane continued. "Should I show you the biology?" Before anyone could answer, the display changed to show a tiny organism magnified thousands of times. It looked like a twisted piece of metal with spikes. "This is a virus," Jane said. "Smaller than you can see without special equipment. This particular one killed 50 million humans in just 2 years. We call it the Spanish flu." 50 million? Vex whispered. "From something so small?" "That's not even our worst plague," Jane replied. "The Black Death killed 1/3 of all humans in Europe. Smallpox wiped out entire civilizations when it spread to new continents." More images flashed. Across the display, bacteria that could kill in hours, parasites that lived inside human bodies for years before killing their hosts, fungal infections that spread through the air and rotted people from the inside. These diseases jump between species, Jane explained. A virus that lives harmlessly in one animal can kill millions of humans. New plagues appear every year. We're always fighting something trying to kill us from the inside. Council member Rock's stone face showed deep confusion. How do you survive such biological warfare? We fight back, Jane said. We developed medicine, vaccines, treatments. When something new tries to kill us, we study it until we can kill it first. The display changed again, showing predators this time. A massive shark with rows of razor teeth. A bear that stood 3 meters tall. A big cat with muscles like steel cables. Our predators, Jane announced. This shark can bite through steel. This bear can run 50 kilometers per hour and climb trees. This cat can leap 10 meters and kill prey twice its size. But surely you avoid these creatures, Ice asked. We can't, Jane replied. They live everywhere we do. In our oceans, forests, even our cities sometimes. We had to learn to be better hunters than anything hunting us. More images flashed by. Snakes with venom that could kill in minutes. Spiders whose bite rotted flesh away from bones. Insects that carried deadly diseases. Plants that were poisonous to touch. Everything on Earth is trying to survive, Jane continued. Plants develop toxins to avoid being eaten. Animals evolve better weapons and defenses. Diseases mutate to spread faster. It's a war that never ends. The final set of images showed humans themselves. People climbing impossible mountains in freezing cold. Others diving into deep oceans without breathing equipment. Groups crossing deserts where the sun could cook flesh. This is how we live, Jane said. We don't just survive Earth's dangers, we seek them out. We climb the highest mountains because they're dangerous. We explore the deepest caves because they might kill us. We sail across violent oceans in small boats just to see what's on the other side. Council member Heat bubbled in his liquid suit. That sounds like madness, not survival. Captain Reed stood up. Council member Heat, that's exactly right. By your standards, we are insane. We take risks that would make any reasonable species turn back and find somewhere safer to live. Then why do you do it? Vex asked. Because there is nowhere safer, Reed replied. Every part of Earth is dangerous. The safe places don't exist. So we learn to be more dangerous than our world. Jane touched her datapad one more time. The HFY display showed a final image. A human child playing in a garden while a storm raged overhead. Earthquake warnings flashed on nearby screens, and dangerous animals prowled just beyond a thin fence. This is normal for us, Jane said quietly. A human child grows up knowing that anything might kill them at any moment. Storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators, accidents. Death is always close. How do your children survive such terror? Ice asked. They don't see it as terror, Reed answered. They see it as life. When you grow up expecting everything to be dangerous, you learn to be ready for anything. Administrator Vex's crystal body pulsed with slow, thoughtful light. Around the Igaupi chamber, council members whispered to each other in their alien languages. These beings had conquered their own deadly worlds, but they had never seen anything like Earth. Captain Reed, Vex said finally, your world is indeed dangerous, but danger alone does not make a species worthy of council membership. What makes humans different from the billions of other species that die on dangerous worlds? Reed smiled his tired smile. Administrator Vex, that's an excellent question, but it's not one I can answer with pictures and stories. What do you mean? The difference isn't what Earth does to us, Reed explained. The difference is what we do because of Earth. And that, Administrator, requires a demonstration. The holographic display went dark. In the silence that followed, Reed could hear the station's life support systems humming. The distant sound of alien voices in the corridors. The steady pulse of Vex's crystal body. The Council is dealing with a crisis, Reed continued. Something that threatens every world in known space. Your greatest military minds have failed to find a solution. How do you know about the swarm? Rock demanded. Because we've been watching, Reed replied. And we think we can help. The council chamber fell completely silent. Administrator Vex's crystal body stopped pulsing. Council member Rock's stone face showed no expression. Even the bubbling sound from Heat's liquid suit seemed to quiet down. How do you know about the swarm? Rock asked again, his voice like grinding stone. Captain Reed remained calm. Our long-range sensors picked up the destruction signatures 6 months ago. 17 star systems consumed. Billions of lives lost. An artificial intelligence that turns everything it touches into more copies of itself. That information is classified, Vex said, her crystal body flashing with angry red light. No outside species should know about the swarm threat. Administrator, Reed replied. When something starts eating star systems, the light from those systems stops reaching other worlds. We may be new to your council, but we're not blind. Lieutenant Jane stepped forward with her datapad. We also intercepted some of your military communications. Your fleets have engaged the swarm 12 times. They've lost every battle. Council. Member Ice leaned forward in her fur-covered chair. You were spying on us? We were trying to understand what we were walking into, Reed said. Earth doesn't survive by ignoring threats. When we see something dangerous, we study it until we know how to fight it. Heat bubbled angrily in his liquid suit. The swarm has defeated the combined fleets of 6 Deathworld species. Our best strategists have tried every approach. What could humans possibly offer that we haven't already attempted? Reed smiled his tired smile. Council member Heat? That's the perfect question. Lieutenant Tom, show them our battle records. Tom activated his datapad. The holographic display above the chamber showed a 3-dimensional map of human space. Red dots marked battle sites. Blue lines showed fleet movements. Yellow symbols indicated victory and defeat markers. These are humanity's major conflicts. Over the last 500 years, Tom explained. Wars against alien invaders, robot uprisings, plague outbreaks, natural disasters. The display zoomed in on one particular battle. It showed human ships attacking what looked like a massive mechanical fortress in space. The Iron Fleet War, Tom continued. Robot ships controlled by an AI that wanted to eliminate all biological life. Sound familiar? Several council members shifted in their seats. The situation did sound very familiar. Our enemy had superior technology, superior numbers, and superior coordination, Tom said. Every logical strategy failed. Conventional tactics were useless. The AI predicted our moves faster than we could make them. How did you win? Rock asked. We didn't use conventional tactics, Reed replied. We used human tactics. The display showed the battle's final phase. Human ships were attacking the robot fortress, but their approach made no sense. Some ships were flying straight at enemy weapons. Others were retreating while firing. A few were spinning out of control while somehow still hitting their targets. I don't understand what I'm seeing, Vex said. Your ships appear to be malfunctioning. Not malfunctioning, Reed corrected. Adapting. The AI couldn't predict our moves because we weren't following any logical pattern. Jane touched her data pad. The display changed to show a detailed breakdown of the human attack strategy. Phase 1, she announced. Half our ships deliberately damaged their own navigation systems. This made their flight patterns completely random. The AI couldn't calculate intercept courses for targets that didn't know where they were going. That's madness, Heat bubbled. You made your own ships helpless. Phase 2, Jane continued, ignoring the comment. Our damaged ships rammed enemy vessels while their crews evacuated in escape pods. The AI wasted time trying to capture the disabled ships instead of shooting the pods. Phase 3. The escape pods weren't really escape pods. They were bombs with people inside. When the AI tried to analyze them, they exploded. Ice's fur stood up in shock. Your people rode bombs into enemy ships? Volunteers only, Reed said simply. We asked for 50 volunteers. 300 people applied. The display showed more battles. Each one featured the same pattern. Humans, doing things that should have failed but somehow worked. The plague ships incident, Tom explained, showing another battle. When biological weapons were turned against our colonies, we loaded infected volunteers into ships and rammed them into enemy medical facilities. The Zero-G guerrilla campaign. When our orbital cities were captured, we sent people out in simple spacesuits to fight trained soldiers in powered armor. They won by using the environment as a weapon. The Broken Moon Gambit. When our enemy took shelter behind a destroyed planet, we moved the entire moon out of orbit and dropped it on their position. Council member Rock's stone face showed something that might have been horror. You moved a moon? How many of your people died in that operation? All of them, Reed said. Everyone who worked on moving the moon knew it was a suicide mission. The radiation and gravitational forces were lethal, but it worked. This is not strategy, Vex said, her crystal body flickering rapidly. This is chaos. How do you coordinate such madness? We don't coordinate it, Reed replied. That's the point. When you're fighting an enemy that can predict logical behavior, you have to be illogical. The display changed to show current intelligence about the swarm, massive mechanical ships that converted matter into more copies of themselves. AI nodes that adapted to every attack pattern they encountered. The swarm learns from each battle, Reed explained. It analyzes your tactics and develops counters. Every time you attack, it gets stronger and smarter. Exactly, Rock said. That's why we can't defeat it. How do you fight an enemy that becomes immune to everything you try? You fight it with things that shouldn't work, Reed answered. The swarm is designed to adapt to logical threats. But how do you adapt to people who break their own equipment on purpose? How do you predict opponents who treat certain death as a tactical advantage? Jane activated a new display showing the human battle plan for fighting the swarm. The strategy looked like complete chaos. Ships attacking from impossible angles, weapons being used in ways they weren't designed for, tactics that violated every principle of space combat. This is our proposal, Reed said. We attack the swarm with every method at once. Fire and ice simultaneously, gravity weapons and EMP devices together, biological agents and radiation bombardment at the same time. Those approaches interfere with each other, Heat protested. You'll do more damage to yourselves than to the enemy. Exactly, Reed smiled. We've been doing more damage to ourselves than our enemies for thousands of years. It's how we win. Vex's crystal body went completely dark for a long moment. When the light returned, it pulsed slowly and thoughtfully. Captain Reed, she said finally, you're asking us to trust our survival to tactics that make no logical sense. Administrator Vex, Reed replied. I'm asking you to trust our survival to the one species that has been surviving impossible odds for their entire existence. The council chamber filled with whispered conversations in a dozen alien languages. These beings had conquered their own deadly worlds through strength, adaptation, and careful planning. Now they were being asked to trust creatures who seemed to win through organized suicide. We need time to consider this proposal, Rock said finally. Reed nodded. How much time do we have before the swarm reaches council space? The silence that followed was answer enough. Then we'd better start preparing, Reed said. Because ready or not, it's time to show the galaxy what humans do when everything looks hopeless. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the edge of council space. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching through the cracked view screen as his ships took position for battle. The fleet looked like a collection of space junk. 47 vessels of different sizes and designs, all showing signs of damage and hasty repairs. Some had hull patches that didn't quite match the original metal. Others had weapon systems that clearly came from different ships entirely. Sir, the council fleet is requesting communication, Lieutenant Tom reported from his station. Put them through, Reed ordered. Administrator Vex's crystal face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Reed could see the bridge of a council warship. Clean, organized, and built by beings who understood proper engineering. Captain Reed, Vex said, our sensors show significant structural damage to most of your vessels. Are you certain they're combat ready? Reed looked around his own bridge, where sparks still flew from damaged panels, and the lights flickered with each system failure. Administrator, if we waited for our ships to be properly repaired, we'd never fight any battles. Your tactical formation makes no sense, came the voice of Council Member Rock. Half your ships are positioned behind the enemy. The other half appear to be retreating before the battle has even started. That's not a retreat, Reed replied. That's set up phase 1. Through the view screen, Reed could see the swarm approach. Hundreds of mechanical ships moved in perfect formation, their black hulls gleaming with the energy they had stolen from consumed worlds. Each ship was identical, built by machines for maximum efficiency. Swarm vessels detected, announced Jane from her sensor station. 437 combat units. They're forming attack patterns. Reed activated the fleet communication channel. All ships, this is Captain Reed. Begin the human solution. Remember, if it looks like it should work, you're doing it wrong. The first phase of the human attack began, and immediately the Council fleet commanders started sending confused messages. Your ships are firing on each other, Vex called out in alarm. No, Reed corrected. Ship groups Alpha and Beta are weakening each other's shields on purpose. When the swarm tries to scan them, the readings won't match any known tactical database. On the tactical display, the human fleet split into seemingly random groups. Some ships accelerated toward the enemy at maximum speed. Others moved so slowly they appeared to be drifting. A few spun in circles while firing their weapons in all directions. Captain Reed, your ship group Delta is completely out of control, Rock reported. They're tumbling end over end. They're not out of control, Reed said calmly. They're using gravitational slingshots around space debris to build up momentum. When they hit the swarm formation, they'll be moving too fast for the AI to calculate intercept courses. The swarm responded exactly as Reed had predicted. The AI ships tried to analyze the human formation, looking for patterns and logic. But there were no patterns. Some human vessels were charging straight ahead while others retreated. Some were spinning while others moved in perfect straight lines. Swarm ships are hesitating, Jane reported. Their formation is breaking apart. They can't decide which targets to prioritize. Phase 2, Reed announced to his fleet. Deploy the broken weapons. What happened next made several council members gasp in shock. Human ships began firing weapons that clearly didn't work properly. Energy beams that flickered on and off. Missiles that flew in spirals instead of straight lines. Particle cannons that shot in completely random directions. Your weapons are malfunctioning. Heat bubbled from his liquid suit. Not malfunctioning, Reed replied. Modified. Those spiral missiles? They're programmed to look like equipment failures, but they're actually following complex attack patterns. The swarm can't predict where they'll hit because even we don't know until the last second. The flickering energy beams were striking swarm ships at random intervals. Each hit was weak, but the unpredictable timing made it impossible for the enemy to time their shield regeneration cycles. Phase 3, Reed called out. Evacuation protocols. Human ships throughout the fleet began launching escape pods. Hundreds of small craft separated from the main vessels and scattered in all directions. Are you abandoning your fleet? Vex asked in confusion. No, Reed said. We're spreading our crew across multiple targets. When the swarm destroys our main ships, our people will still be fighting from the pods. Sure enough, as swarm vessels destroyed human ships, they ignored the escape pods as non-threatening. But the pods weren't trying to escape. They were maneuvering into attack positions around the enemy fleet. Escape pods don't carry weapons, Rock pointed out. These ones do, Reed replied. Each pod has enough explosive power to cripple a swarm vessel, and each one is piloted by a volunteer who knows they're not coming home. The battle entered its final phase. Human escape pods began ramming swarm ships, exploding on impact. But these weren't desperate suicide runs. They were carefully coordinated strikes at critical system points. How do your pilots know where to hit the enemy ships? Ice asked. They don't, Reed answered. But it doesn't matter. Swarm vessels are designed for efficiency. Hit them anywhere with enough force, and something important breaks. Meanwhile, the surviving human ships were using tactics that violated every principle of space combat. They rammed enemy vessels while their hulls were already breaching. They fired their own reactors as weapons while the crew evacuated through improvised airlocks. They used pieces of destroyed ships as projectiles. This is madness, Vex said, but her crystal body was pulsing with what might have been admiration. This is humanity, Reed corrected. We've been turning disasters into victories for 50,000 years. The tide of battle shifted. The swarm's adaptive algorithms couldn't handle opponents who broke their own equipment on purpose. The AI tried to predict human behavior, but humans kept doing things that should have been impossible. One by one, swarm vessels fell to attacks that made no logical sense. Ships destroyed by weapons that weren't supposed to work. Formations broken by tactics that violated basic physics. And artificial intelligence defeated by organic chaos. When the last swarm ship exploded, the battlefield fell silent. Casualty report, Reed said quietly. Jane checked her screens. All ships destroyed, sir. All main crews lost. Escape pod survival rate, 0%. Reed nodded slowly. Around him, his bridge crew worked at stations that were failing one by one. The Defiance had taken so much damage that life support was barely functioning. Then we succeeded, Reed said. Captain Reed, Vex's voice came through the dying communication system. How are you still alive? Our sensors show that all human vessels were destroyed. Reed looked around his bridge one more time. We're not the main fleet, Administrator. We're backup Team Alpha, the ones who clean up if the first wave doesn't make it. There are more of you? There are always more of us, Reed replied. That's what Deathworld species do, Administrator. We keep coming until the job gets done. The communication system died with a shower of sparks. Through the cracked view screen, Reed watched as Council ships moved to pick up the surviving humans. Sir, Tom said quietly. Do you think they'll accept us now? Reed smiled as the lights went out around them. Tom, I think we just showed the galaxy what it means to be human. 6 hours later, Captain Reed stood before the Deathworld Council one final time. The chamber was filled with beings who had fought their own impossible battles on worlds that tried to kill them. Captain Reed, Administrator Vex said, her crystal body glowing with warm light. The Council has reached a decision. Reed waited. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Deathworld Council. Your species has proven that you don't just survive impossible odds, you weaponize them. Around the chamber, council members from the galaxy's most dangerous worlds nodded their approval. They had found their equals at last. Welcome to the council, Vex continued. Though we suspect that before long the rest of the galaxy will be asking not what makes a world dangerous enough to produce council members, but what makes a species crazy enough to call those worlds home, Reed finished. The council voted unanimously. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as the strongest species, or the smartest, or the most advanced, but as the one species that would keep fighting long after victory became impossible. And in a galaxy full of dangers, that was exactly what everyone needed.